What was it about the Marines?
Marines were the best of the best. You know, I wanted to be in the hardest fighting unit. You know, I didn't want to learn a trade. I wanted to be at war every day. You know, and that's something I've changed my view on massively just recently, or not recently, but you know. But at that time, as a boy, I wanted to learn to be a soldier. I wanted to learn how to shoot weapons. I wanted to learn how to shoot the enemy. I wanted to be in conflict every day. And for me, the Marines were the people that were going to get me there. You know, I saw, you know, I was around about the Falklands wartime, 1982. That's when I was sort of growing up, and that was a big influence on my life. You know, I did see, if you remember 1980 as well, there was the embassy, where the SAS went into the embassy in London, and it was phenomenal. But the thing is, although I knew the Special Forces were there, I just thought, Special Forces, they're carved in marble on a different planet and bought, you know, they're cut from a different cloth. I just thought I could never achieve that, but what I thought I could, although I doubted myself, I could achieve the Royal Marines, but I knew it was the toughest, and that's what I wanted. I heard, for me, it was about the training. I looked at the training, and whose training was the longest, and it was the Royal Marines. So that's, in my head, I thought, well, they must be the best.
First day you get out to the Marines, or I don't know if it was the first day you get out to the Marines, and there was a woman who said to you, I think she sort of said,
Yeah, no, that was interesting, because after that, you know, one thing I'll say about my mum, I mean, I put her through hell, and it was all, you know, getting into trouble at school. I ended up on remand, you know, at one point. It was only a couple of weeks, but I ended up on remand. I was unstoppable. I was just causing more and more trouble, and I thought I was definitely going to have a custodial sentence. Thank God I never. But after that point, you know, my mum, her life was falling apart. She, you know, and although that, I'll never forget this, although that was happening, her marriage had fallen apart, my dad had left, and she was struggling financially, but she still, although she was going through her own stuff, she knew I needed support, I needed help. And once she knew that I wanted to join the Royal Marines, she absolutely did everything she could to help me on that journey, probably to get rid of me. But it was amazing, and you know, she used to take me to my cross-country events and my athletics events. But one thing she did is she used to take me to Derby, and she used to take me to the careers office. It seemed like it was every week. But yeah, I was in there, and it was interesting because I was so passionate about being a Royal Marines Commando, and I got in there, and there was a Navy officer, female, and she sat me down one day and she said, "So let's say you get in the Marines, then what do you want to do once you're in?" And I got all the brochures and everything. I can remember opening the book, and there was a picture of this Special Forces soldier. Well, there's a picture of a mini sub, and there was a picture of a combat swimmer, Special Forces combat swimmer, going to the sub. And I went, "I want to do that." And she looked at me and she just laughed, and she went, "Everyone wants to do that." And then she closed the book. So that for me was like, although I still thought, you know, I could never, you know, it was still a dream. That was, although I didn't possibly, you know, I thought the journey was too hard to get to that, you know, it was still something that held a special place in my head, but that was amplified by her saying that I couldn't do it. You know, that seed was then sown. That seed was sown.
What does it take to be a Marine?
It takes, and I say this with tongue in cheek, but it takes an extreme amount of discipline. It takes a lot of motivation. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes, above all, belief. Yeah.
So then you get into the Marines. Did you serve whilst you was in the Marines? Did you have to serve to do the Special Forces?
Yeah, I joined the Royal Marines, and I got through 32 weeks of training. This is back in 1989, I joined up. 32 weeks of training, I actually passed out finally, and the proudest moment for me was, you know, seeing my mum there and her watching me, you know, pass out and get my green beret as a Royal Marine Commando, you know, where, you know, seeing how much trouble I got into as a kid. Many people, even the police, were like, "You'll be back." You know, they'd kind of written me off already. But I wasn't, and it must have been it was such a proud moment for my mum that day, seeing me pass out as a Royal Marine Commando. From there, I went straight over to Northern Ireland, and that was probably my biggest shocker, to be quite honest, because when I joined, there was a brochure, and in my brochure there was young men in uniform, looked pristine, and I just thought, God, all the chicks are like that. And then I saw another guy who was like windsurfing on a little holiday in the Caribbean or somewhere, and nothing prepared me for Ireland. You know what I mean? Ireland, although they called it a conflict, it was a war. It's a war. People are trying to work, and I consider that's quite black and white. If someone's trying to kill you, and you're going to do what you can to defend yourself and kill them if necessary, then that to me is a war. I don't care what you call it. But getting out there, you know, Northern Ireland, the first couple of nights in, we were on a quick reaction force. So anything that happened in the region, we would jump on a helicopter, go straight out there, deal with it. And when I look back now, I was 19 years old. I mean, geez, I can't imagine my son at war. You know, it's just like, I can't believe I was that young. And that first night we got in, something had happened, a bomb had gone off, we were straight onto the helicopter, straight out. And the IRA had driven a truck bomb or a car bomb into a checkpoint. Totally obliterated the whole of the checkpoint. It was a 500-pound bomb. And the off-coming guard, which was the Coldstream Guards, that it killed about 5 or 6. But I can always remember we got down on the ground and one of our sergeants got out, Sergeant Clare, and he was like, he'd been to the Falklands, he was pretty, you know, hardened and those kind of things. We were still in a state of shock. There was just mayhem everywhere. And I can remember he gathered everyone in and he booted something on the floor. He said, we need to see if we can find any more of these. And we looked down and it rolled, and as it stopped, it was a head inside a helmet. And that for me was like, that wasn't windsurfing on a beach. You know what I mean? That was like my first introduction as a young boy to war. That's where I crossed that bridge. And it was a bit of a shock, really. A hell of a shock, actually. And then we had after that, you know, we had a pretty colourful, they tried 19 times to kill us. Didn't succeed, but it was an interesting tour. But one thing I did learn on that, which kind of changed my view, and I think this was really, when I look at it, it was the catalyst for me wanting to join the Special Forces. I can remember looking across the ground one day, and I don't know why I had it. It was just like an epiphany. It was just like something that came into my head. And they used to give us all these sort of tasks, all these missions every day to go and do. And I sat there one day and I went, there are no tasks, there are no missions, we're bait. And that's, to this day, I still believe that. You know, we're bait. We're being put on the ground because they want the IRA to attack us. And then from that's where they build their intelligence. You know, the activity creates the intelligence picture. So for me, it was like, I just thought, I'm just cannon fodder. It wasn't sharp enough. It wasn't the sharp. I needed to be on the sharper end of the spear, whatever you want to call it. And so I kind of lost a little bit of interest from that point on. You know, it kind of devalued me. It was just, I felt like cannon fodder. So when we got back from that, we went on 2 weeks leave, or not 2 weeks, it was like 6 weeks leave, but it got cut short, and then we got called over to Iraq, Operation Desert Storm, and again, that was, although there was a few things, we went to the village, we went into some of the villages in the mountains where the Kurds were, and there were some atrocities done, you know, some things that I can't even describe to this day, done to the Kurds up in the mountains. So again, that was a shock, but you know, it's part of the education. You know, it's part of my indoctrination into that world. But I came back from there, you know, and although it had certain things happened and it was great, it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And it got to that point where I started to lose belief in myself. And the whole, just the thought that I could be in the Special Forces, I thought, nah, that's not, I'm not prepared to embark on that journey. I just didn't believe in myself enough. And I put my notice in to leave at that point. You know, I'd had enough. And I think I had 6 months left to do, even less than that. And I ended up bumping into my former officer from who I served with in Iraq. And he was at my brother's pass out. My brother passed out as a helicopter pilot. He was the brainy one. And I saw him there and he said, "What are you up to?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving." And he said, "No, you're kidding me." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's not for me." And he says, "Mate," he said, "You've got something. I don't know what it is, but you've got something. I believe you've got what it takes for the Special Forces. If you leave now, you'll regret that for the rest of your life." And those words from someone that I respected changed me straight away, inspired me. Someone gave me a bit of confidence when I was lacking it. And that was phenomenal. And that gave me just that little inch of confidence to change my whole mindset and think. And just the thought of, you will regret that for the rest of your life. They're powerful words, really powerful words. And if it wasn't for him saying that, I wouldn't be sat here today, and I'd be leading a very different life, whatever that would be. But that was the one turning point. I then went and got back. I took out my notice to leave, and within a month or 2 months, I was down at Hereford starting Special Forces.